next one, the one where you have 25 men and 35 women, that would be stratified sampling. Stratified sampling. And why is that? Because what they're doing is, here they're breaking up the population by gender, and they're taking some from each. Some men, some women. I know also what they do is they take, what was I going to say? I think the sample from each subgroup, the sample they take is proportional to the size of that subgroup. I'm guessing wherever they're sampling from, there's more women than men there. So that's something else they do. Some from all, so it's stratified sampling. All right. So we have different sampling techniques, okay? We have, let me go back and see. We have this, we have a simple random sample, right? Everyone is equally likely to be chosen. We had stratified sampling, and related to that is cluster sampling. So in stratified sampling, you're taking a sample from every subgroup. Cluster, stratified, you're taking a random sample from every subgroup. For cluster, you're taking some of the subgroups, I guess a random collection, and dealing with everyone in there, in those subgroups that you collect. Systematic sampling. You have to be careful with sampling, though. I mean, there are many ways to study. You're a statistician. There are many ways a study can be hurt. As I said before, there's sampling bias. And as I also said before, that's when the sample you get is not representative of the population. So again, going back to that example where if you stand in front of Fitzel and you were to survey everyone that comes out of the building or goes in, assuming they agree to speak to you, assuming they tell the truth, that would still be not a good sample. Not everyone on campus is going to work there. Not every student's going to have a class in there. There's also voluntary response bias. Again, that's when the sample is all volunteers. You're not only the people that volunteer are engaging in the study. Not everyone in the population is going to volunteer necessarily. There's also self-interest study. And you might see this where, you might hear about a company like the one I wrote there was Gatorade. I'm not saying this is true. It's just an example I came up with where Gatorade publishes a study showing that this study shows that if you drink our Gatorade after exercising, your math scores will get better. I mean, some of that people should be doubtful, skeptical, that is. It could be true, but it should be, subjected to extra study, extra scrutiny, so to say. That's something that would be in the interest of the company itself. I think the book actually had an example like that, but instead it was Wrigley Company, the one that makes chewing gum. You might see this on a cereal box or something where they'll say eating this cereal, studies show, will make you healthier. Something like that is a self-interest study. There's also some other things that can go wrong. There's response bias. That's when the person that's responding gives wrong answers. Inaccurate, that is. And not necessarily that they're lying. They may not remember. Like if you were to ask people when was the last time you visited your doctor, they may not remember. They may not remember for whatever reason. Or if you ask them the last time, when did they give to, I don't know, charity, let's say. They may not remember. I mean, they could lie, but they may not. There's also a lack of anonymity, a perceived lack of anonymity. In that case, you're afraid of people seeing your response because it might negatively affect you. For instance, if you're working at a company and they send out a survey asking you, what do you think of the new boss's policy? Or how do you think the public relations department handled the previous incident. Well, I don't know if a school would do this. If a high school sends out a survey and asks, "What do you think of the new curriculum? What do you think of the new curriculum?" You know, people might not respond truthfully. They're afraid of retribution. There's also non-response bias. You know, that's when people refuse to participate for whatever reason. You know, they just decide not to. You know, you might get that when telemarketers or Spectrum or someone else calls you and asks you about a survey. You might get that if you got help from Spectrum regarding an internet issue. They call you back and ask you to complete a survey regarding your experience with their customer service. You know, people may not want to answer that, so that can give you non-response bias. Okay. There's also loaded questions. So that may be intentional or unintentional. That's when the question is worded in a way to influence their response. It could also be question order. So that can make a difference as well. You know, pollsters might do this. You might see also where, you know, this example as I have with building a new school, that's a loaded question. There's another one actually later on in the slides where I wrote, "You support the death penalty even if innocent people might be killed or brutally murdered or something." You know, that kind of wording is a loaded question. All right. Okay, so here are some examples. We have a substitute teacher. She wants to know how to class this, so she's only asking 10 students sitting in the front row. Or even if she didn't ask them, maybe she found out who they were and she looked at their test scores. Let's say. That would be sampling bias. That kind of bias is sampling bias. And why is that? Well, those 10 students may not be representative of the whole class. I probably should have said how many students are in the class, but they may not be representative of the whole class, though. You know, they might be the best students or they might be the worst. I don't know. Have the next example with the Beef Council. That's, you could probably guess from reading it, that even if I didn't write the answer, that's a self-interest study, something that benefits them. So there's also number 3 there. You know, a school, let's say, has their students fill out a survey asking them, you know, how often do you drink alcohol? Or how, maybe a better one would be, how often do you study for your exams? You know, they might be afraid of retaliation. So, you know, that one would be a lack of anonymity. Okay, so I figured this one you guys could try. Hold on, let me pause the recording.